Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy my video, please click the like button and share the video. It is the only way the YouTube algorithms really notices me. I will be very grateful to you. Echoes of the Forgotten. Scary story published by Scare Fiction. Read for you by Scare Fiction. Chapter 1. The Descent. The sun dipped below the horizon as Anna, Jake, Lily, Mark, and Sophia cruised down the winding roads of rural Pennsylvania. The thick canopy of trees overhead cast long shadows across the road, giving the forest an eerie, almost mystical quality. Anna, the de facto leader of the group, had her eyes fixed on the GPS, ensuring they didn't miss the turnoff to the old mine. She was determined and resourceful, traits she had honed over years of outdoor adventures. "Are we there yet?" Mark joked from the back seat, his voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. He was the joker of the group, always ready with a quip to lighten the mood. "Almost," Anna replied, a smile tugging at her lips. "Just a few more miles." Jake, sitting next to her, rolled his eyes. "I still don't see why we had to come all the way out here. There are plenty of places to explore back home." Lily, who was quietly gazing out the window, turned to Jake. "Because this place has history. It's not just any mine, it's one of the oldest in the state. Besides, where's your sense of adventure?" Sophia, the quiet and introspective one, nodded in agreement. "It's supposed to be beautiful, in a creepy, abandoned sort of way." They finally arrived at a clearing where a weathered sign read Hawthorne Mine closed since 1924. They parked the car and gathered their gear, flashlights, backpacks, and helmets. The entrance to the mine yawned open before them, a dark void against the backdrop of the twilight sky. "This is it," Anna said, her voice barely a whisper. The group exchanged looks, a mix of excitement and apprehension. They had all heard the stories about the mine, about the accidents and the disappearances, but it was exactly that thrill of the unknown that had drawn them here. As they stepped inside, the temperature dropped noticeably. The air was thick with dust, and the sound of their footsteps echoed off the walls. Mark's jokes quieted as the darkness closed in around them. Lily's flashlight beam danced across the rough-hewn walls, revealing rusted tracks and long-abandoned mining equipment. "Okay, everyone, stick together," Anna instructed, her voice steady. "We don't want anyone getting lost." They ventured deeper, the mine's passageways twisting and turning. Laughter and light-hearted banter gradually faded, replaced by a tense silence. The oppressive darkness seemed to swallow their light, making the walls feel as though they were closing in. Suddenly, a low rumble reverberated through the mine. Dust and small rocks began to fall from the ceiling. "What the hell?" Jake shouted, his flashlight flickering wildly. Before they could react, a deafening crash echoed through the tunnels. The ground shook violently, and a wall of rock and debris collapsed behind them, sealing their exit. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped. Anna took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. "Stay calm, everyone. We'll find another way out." But as they stood in the suffocating darkness, the weight of the mine pressing down on them, an unsettling fear began to creep in. The adventure had turned into a nightmare, and they were only just beginning to understand the true horror of Hawthorne Mine. Chapter 2. Unseen Whispers. The oppressive silence of the mine was shattered by the crash that sealed their exit. Dust settled around them like a suffocating shroud. Mark's eyes darted around, wide with fear. Lily clutched her flashlight, her knuckles white, while Jake frantically examined the rockfall. Anna stepped forward, her voice commanding despite the quiver she fought to hide. "Everyone, stay calm," Anna ordered. "We need to think clearly." "We're trapped," Mark said, his voice rising with panic. "We're going to die down here." "We won't," Anna said firmly, though the doubt gnawed at her. "We'll find another way out. This mine has to have more exits." Jake shook his head, shining his flashlight on the collapsed tunnel. "This looks bad. We need to find another path, but we have to be careful. Mines can be like labyrinths." Lily, standing apart from the group, stared into the darkness. "Do you feel that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Feel what?" Jake snapped, frustration edging his tone. "Something's wrong here," Lily continued, her eyes wide and fearful. "I can sense it. We're not alone." Sophia, holding the old journal they'd found, looked uneasy. "Maybe we should stick together and move slowly," she suggested, trying to be the voice of reason. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew colder, the air heavy with an inexplicable tension. The faint beam of Lily's flashlight revealed ancient wooden beams, their surfaces splintered and worn by time. Every step they took echoed through the passageways, a constant reminder of their isolation. Then the whispers began. Soft, almost inaudible at first, they seemed to seep from the very walls of the mine. Mark froze, his face pale. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Hear what?" Jake demanded, his skepticism faltering. "The whispers," Lily said, her eyes darting around. "They're all around us." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. She tightened her grip on her flashlight. "Keep moving," she urged. "It's just our minds playing tricks." But as they pressed on, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. The words were unintelligible, but the malevolence behind them was unmistakable. Their flashlights flickered, casting erratic shadows on the walls. Mark's phone, which he had been using for extra light, suddenly died, the screen going black. "This can't be happening," Jake muttered, smacking his flashlight as it flickered. "It's like the mine itself is against us." Sophia glanced back at the journal, the pages now fluttering as if stirred by an unseen hand. "Maybe there's something in here that can help us," she said, flipping through the fragile pages. Anna nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to stay together and find out what's going on. Whatever is happening, we can't let it tear us apart." As they moved forward, the oppressive darkness seemed to close in tighter, the whispers growing more insistent. The friends clung to each other, their fear palpable. The mine was no longer just an abandoned relic. It was a living entity, and it had no intention of letting them go. Chapter 3: Shadows in the Dark. The oppressive darkness of the mine felt alive, wrapping around the friends like a suffocating shroud. Anna led the group deeper into the tunnels, her flashlight beam trembling as it cut through the blackness. The whispers persisted, a constant reminder of the unseen presence that lurked within the mine. "Keep moving," Anna urged, trying to maintain her composure. "We need to find another exit." Mark, his attempt at humor faltering, quipped, "Maybe we'll find a Starbucks down here." The laughter that followed was hollow, an attempt to break the tension that only highlighted their growing fear. Suddenly, Jake's flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows on the walls. He smacked it in frustration, but the shadows seemed to move on their own, shifting and twisting in ways that defied logic. "Did you see that?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Lily, her eyes wide with terror, nodded. "The shadows. They're not right." As they pressed on, the shadows grew more distinct, taking on forms that seemed almost human. They flickered at the edge of their vision, vanishing when looked at directly. Mark's joke ceased entirely, replaced by a tense silence. It was clear that something was watching them, something that thrived in the darkness. Sophia, trailing behind the group, stopped abruptly. "Wait," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She knelt down, her flashlight illuminating a dusty corner of the tunnel. There, Partially buried under debris was an old, leather-bound journal. Next to it lay a small, ornate artifact, its surface etched with strange symbols. "What did you find?" Anna asked, peering over Sophia's shoulder. Sophia opened the journal carefully, the pages brittle with age. "It's a journal," she said, flipping through the yellowed pages. "And this artifact, it looks ancient." Jake leaned in, curiosity overcoming his fear. "What does it say?" Sophia began to read aloud, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. The journal belonged to one of the miners. "He writes about a tragic accident that happened here, a collapse that trapped dozens of men. They disturbed something ancient, something that cursed the mine." "The whispers," Lily whispered, her eyes darting around the tunnel. "They're the voices of the trapped miners." "And this artifact?" Mark asked, holding it up to the light. Sophia's eyes widened as she studied it. "It's a ward, meant to contain whatever they disturbed. But it looks damaged." A cold breeze swept through the tunnel, extinguishing their flashlights momentarily. When the light returned, the shadows seemed to pulse with anger, growing more aggressive. The friends huddled together, their fear palpable. "We need to fix it," Anna said, her voice resolute. "If the artifact is broken, maybe we can repair it and end this curse." As they pressed on, the journal and artifact in hand, the oppressive darkness closed in tighter. The mine was no longer just an abandoned relic. It was a malevolent force, intent on keeping them within its grasp. The true horror of Hawthorne Mine was beginning to unfold, and the friends could feel its cold grip tightening around their hearts. Chapter 4. The Forgotten History. The oppressive darkness seemed to tighten its grip around the group as they ventured deeper into the mine. Every step echoed with the whispers of the past, their voices growing louder and more insistent. Anna led the way, her resolve hardening despite the mounting fear. She glanced back at Sophia, who clutched the journal and the damaged artifact. "Tell us what you know," Anna said, her voice steady but urgent. Sophia hesitated, then took a deep breath. "This journal belonged to one of the miners," she began, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. According to his entries, the mine was thriving until they broke through to an ancient chamber. They disturbed something that had been buried for centuries. The group listened intently as Sophia continued. The miner writes about how the air grew cold and the walls seemed to whisper. Then came the accident, a collapse that trapped dozens of men. The survivors claimed they saw shadows moving on their own, heard voices calling their names. They believed they had unleashed a curse. As Sophia spoke, the tunnel seemed to come alive with the ghosts of the past. Mark's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that twisted and danced along the walls. The oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on them, each step feeling like a descent into madness. The group huddled closer as Sophia read from the journal. The miners tried to seal the chamber, but it was too late. Whatever they had awakened was already spreading through the mine. They created this artifact to contain the evil, but it was damaged in the collapse. Lily, her eyes wide with terror, whispered, "We need to fix it. It's our only hope." Jake, his skepticism eroded by fear, nodded. "But how? We don't even know what we're dealing with." Sophia shook her head. "I don't know, but we have to try." The isolation and fear began to take their toll. Lily started to hear voices that the others couldn't, whispers that seemed to speak directly to her. She would often stop and listen, her eyes glazed with a mixture of fear and fascination. "They're calling to me," she would say, her voice distant. Anna, feeling the weight of her responsibility, struggled to keep everyone together. She had led them here, and the guilt of putting her friends in danger gnawed at her. The mine's oppressive atmosphere only intensified her anxiety. and she found herself questioning every decision. Sophia's voice broke through Anna's thoughts. "There's an entry here about a ritual," she said. "If we can perform it, maybe we can repair the artifact and break the curse." "Then let's do it," Anna said, her determination renewed. "We have no other choice." As they moved forward, the psychological strain deepened. The whispers grew louder, the shadows more menacing. The mind seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, feeding on their fear and desperation. The friends clung to each other, their sanity fraying at the edges, as they delved deeper into the heart of the forgotten history that haunted Hawthorne Mine. Chapter 5. Descent into Madness. The air in the mine grew colder, and the oppressive darkness seemed to pulse with malevolence as the group ventured deeper. Every step was accompanied by the cacophony of whispers that had turned into screams, echoing off the walls and piercing their sanity. Anna led the way, her resolve wavering under the weight of their dire situation. "Keep moving," Anna urged, but her voice lacked the confidence it once held. Lily, increasingly sensitive to the supernatural, stopped suddenly. Her eyes were wide and frantic. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They're all around us." Before anyone could react, a shadow lunged at them from the darkness, its form twisting and writhing. Jake, always the skeptic, was the first to face it. The shadow's cold, spectral hand grazed his cheek, and he stumbled back, his face a mask of terror. "What the hell was that?" he shouted, his voice cracking. Anna swung her flashlight towards the shadow, but it melted back into the darkness, leaving only the echo of its chilling touch. "We need to stay together," she said, her voice shaking. "Don't let them separate us." Sophia clutched the damaged artifact tightly, her eyes darting around the tunnel. "We have to fix this. It's the only way to stop them." But the shadows were relentless. They darted in out of the periphery, their attacks growing bolder. One shadow lunged at Mark, knocking him to the ground. He scrambled back, his humor long forgotten. "This is insane. We're not going to make it out of here." Jake, his skepticism shattered, nodded vigorously. "We need a plan, Anna. What do we do?" Anna, feeling the pressure of leadership, struggled to think clearly. "We have to find the chamber where it all started. The journal mentioned a ritual. If we can perform it, maybe we can stop this." Tensions within the group reached a boiling point. "This is your fault, Anna," Mark shouted, pointing an accusatory finger. "You let us down here." "Stop it, Mark," Jake snapped, stepping between them. "This isn't helping. We need to stick together." Lily, standing apart from the others, shook her head. "They're not going to let us leave," she said, her voice distant. "They want us here. They need us." "You're not making any sense," Mark shouted, his frustration boiling over. "We can't trust her. She's losing it." Anna's heart ached at the sight of her friends turning on each other. "Enough," she yelled. "We have to stay united. If we fall apart now, we're done." Sophia, flipping through the journal, found the page describing the ritual. "We need to find the main chamber," she said, her voice steady. "That's where we can perform the ritual." The group, despite their fear and mistrust, pressed on. The supernatural phenomena grew more aggressive. Shadows clawed at them, whispers turned into blood-curdling screams, and the air grew colder with each step. Lily's sensitivity isolated her further, as she tried to warn the others of impending attacks. Their trust in each other eroded, and the weight of their situation pressed down on them. The mind seemed to revel in their despair, its dark heart pulsing with the terror it fed upon. As they moved forward, each step felt like a descent into madness, the line between reality and nightmare blurring beyond recognition. Chapter 6. The Abyss Revealed. The oppressive darkness felt heavier than ever as Anna, Jake, Lily, Mark, and Sophia trudged deeper into the mine. The relentless whispers had turned into a symphony of tortured screams, echoing off the cold, damp walls. Every step seemed to draw them further from hope and closer to despair. Suddenly, the tunnel widened into a vast underground chamber. The air was thick with a palpable malevolence, and the flickering beams of their flashlights revealed a ghastly scene. Ancient mining equipment lay scattered about, but it was the ghostly figures and vengeful spirits that held their horrified gazes. Translucent miners, their faces contorted in eternal agony, moved silently through the chamber, replaying their final moments. "This is it," Anna whispered, her voice barely audible. "This is where it all happened." Sophia clutched the damaged artifact, her fingers trembling. "The journal said we need to perform the ritual here," she said, flipping through the pages with urgency. "But it requires a sacrifice." The group exchanged fearful glances. The concept of sacrifice hung heavily in the air, a grim reminder of the stakes they faced. Anna squared her shoulders, determination etched on her face. "We'll do whatever it takes. We have to break this curse." As they prepared for the ritual, the ghostly figures grew more agitated. One spirit, a spectral miner with hollow eyes, reached out to Mark. He recoiled, his bravado shattering. "I can't do this," he admitted, his voice shaking. "I'm not as brave as I pretend to be." Anna placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We need you, Mark. We need each other." Sophia carefully positioned the artifact at the center of the chamber. "We have to recite the incantation together," she instructed. "But someone has to stay within the circle as a conduit for the ritual." Lily stepped forward, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and resolve. "I'll do it. I can hear them. Maybe they'll listen to me." "No," Anna said firmly. "We do this together. We find another way." As they began to chant the incantation, the chamber seemed to come alive. The ghostly figures circled them, their faces twisted in a mix of rage and desperation. The ground trembled, and the air crackled with dark energy. The artifact glowed faintly, its power slowly reawakening. Suddenly, a figure materialized before them, more solid and menacing than the others. It was the spirit of the mine's foreman, his eyes burning with vengeful fire. "You cannot break the curse," he hissed. "You will join us." Anna's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "We will end this," she declared, her voice unwavering. With a final, desperate effort, the group completed the incantation. The artifact blazed with light, and the spirits let out a collective wail. The chamber shook violently, and the ghostly figures began to dissolve into the ether. As the light from the artifact intensified, Anna felt a searing pain in her chest. She stumbled, clutching the artifact, and realized the true nature of the sacrifice. It wasn't a life that was needed, but a willingness to confront the darkness within oneself. In that moment, Anna saw flashes of the mine's tragic past, the accident, the panic, the despair. She felt the weight of the miners' suffering, their fear and anguish. Tears streamed down her face as she absorbed their pain, channeling it in the artifact. The light exploded outward, engulfing the chamber. The spirits vanished, and the oppressive darkness lifted. The mine, once a place of torment, was now eerily silent. Exhausted but relieved, the group collapsed to the ground. The artifact lay before them, whole and dormant. They had done it. The curse was broken. Anna looked at her friends, their faces reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "We made it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. As they slowly made their way back to the surface, the weight of their ordeal lingered. The mine's dark history had been revealed, and though they had faced the abyss, they had emerged together, stronger and forever changed. Chapter 7: Sacrifice and Escape. The chamber's oppressive silence was shattered by the entity's malevolent roar. The foreman's spirit, more solid and menacing than before, advanced toward the group, its eyes burning with fury. The artifact, now pulsing with a faint glow, lay on the ground between them, the only hope for their survival. "We have to use the artifact," Anna shouted, her voice trembling with urgency. "It's our only chance." Sophia picked up the artifact, its weight seemingly heavier with the responsibility it carried. But how? It needs a conduit, someone to channel its power. The foreman's spirit lunged, and Jake barely dodged its spectral grasp. "We don't have time to argue. We need to act now." Mark, who had been standing silently, his earlier fear replaced by a steely determination, stepped forward. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I'll be the conduit." "No," Anna cried, grabbing his arm. "There has to be another way." Mark shook his head, a sad smile on his face. "It's the only way, Anna. If someone doesn't stay behind, we all die here. I won't let that happen." With a final nod to his friends, Mark took the artifact from Sophia and stepped into the center of the chamber. The foreman's spirit howled, sensing the impending threat to its existence. Mark raised the artifact high, its glow intensifying, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Get ready to run," Mark said, his eyes meeting each of theirs. "When the path opens, don't look back." As Mark began to chant the incantation, the artifact blazed with light. The foreman's spirit writhed, its form distorting under the artifact's power. The ground trembled, and the air filled with an ear-splitting roar. "Go!" Mark screamed, his voice blending with the cacophony. A passageway opened in the far wall, illuminated by the artifact's light. Anna, Sophia, Jake, and Lily hesitated for a split second, their hearts breaking for their friend. Then, driven by sheer survival instinct, they sprinted toward the exit. The new path was treacherous, littered with debris and narrow passages. The whispers of the mine seemed to guide them, Mark's voice mingling with them. Anna could barely see through her tears, but she pushed on, fueled by the promise of escape. Psychological barriers assaulted them at every turn, visions of their worst fears, shadows that seemed to grab at their limbs. But they fought through, driven by the memory of Mark's sacrifice. Finally, the light of the exit came into view, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. With one last surge of energy, they burst out of the mine, collapsing onto the ground outside. The oppressive weight of the mine lifted, replaced by the cool night air. Anna looked back at the entrance, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Mark," she whispered, her voice breaking. "We owe you our lives." Sophia, Jake, and Lily gathered around, their faces reflecting a mixture of grief and relief. They had escaped, but the cost was immeasurable. As they held each other, they felt the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon, a new day, marking their survival and the memory of their friend's ultimate sacrifice. Chapter 8: Echoes of the Past. The dawn light was pale and tentative, casting long shadows over the friends as they lay on the ground outside the mine. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, and the silence was punctuated only by their sobs and the distant calls of waking birds. They had escaped, but the victory felt hollow. Anna sat up slowly, her body aching and her heart heavy with the weight of what they had left behind. She looked at the entrance of the mine, now eerily silent, and felt a profound sense of loss. "Mark," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Sophia, Jake, and Lily gathered around her, their faces reflecting the same grief and exhaustion. "He saved us," Jake said, his voice thick with tears. "He gave us a chance." Lily, her eyes red and swollen, nodded. "We have to make his sacrifice mean something. We can't let his memory be consumed by this place." As they helped each other to their feet, the reality of their ordeal began to sink in. The mine had taken a piece of each of them, leaving behind deep scars that would never fully heal. They were alive, but the trauma of their experience clung to them like a shadow. Back in town, the locals greeted them with a mix of relief and curiosity. The friends' story of survival spread quickly, but the details of the supernatural horrors they faced were met with skepticism. Only they knew the true extent of the darkness they had confronted. Weeks passed, and the friends tried to return to their normal lives. But the mine's sinister presence lingered. Anna found herself waking in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the whispers still echoing in her ears. Jake, once the skeptic, now jumped at every shadow, haunted by memories of the ghostly figures. Sophia spent hours poring over old texts, searching for ways to ensure the curse was truly broken. And Lily, her sensitivity to the supernatural heightened, often felt a cold presence in her home, as if the mine's spirits had followed her. One evening, as they gathered at Anna's house to support each other, a chill swept through the room. The lights flickered, and a familiar, haunting whisper filled the air. They froze, their eyes wide with fear and recognition. "It can't be," Anna murmured, her heart pounding. The whisper grew louder, unmistakable now. It was Mark's voice, mingling with the voices of the miners. "You cannot escape." It's a mournful, chilling echo. "We are part of you now." The friends huddled together, their fear palpable. They had escaped the mine, but its darkness had left an indelible mark on their souls. The finality of their ordeal seemed less certain, the shadows of the past refusing to let go. As they sat in the flickering light, the room grew colder, and the whispers faded into the background. The mine's curse, it seemed, had not been entirely broken. The haunting presence of Hawthorne Mine would forever echo in their lives, a constant reminder of the darkness they had faced and the sacrifice that had saved them. In the stillness, a single, haunting image lingered. The artifact, once their hope for salvation, now lay dormant on the table. Its faint glow was a chilling reminder that some darknesses can never be fully vanquished.